look at winter, we'll just start with winter. So I have this in the tilt. I want you to find the equator. The equator is going to be the center of those parallel lines, the very middle one. And I want you to find the equator on each picture and kind of darken it in because it just makes it easier to read. This is me darkening it in. Then you got lines. And no, I can't pull this up electronically and write on the actual assignment because it won't let me do a screen share on Zoom. That's why I have to do it this way. So it'd be nice, but whatever it is, I can't find a workaround on that. I don't know if it's a software issue or what. And if you follow the equator out where it says hours of daylight, it should be where it says 12 hours, 0 minutes. So on the equinoxes and on the solstices, if you live at the equator, you have 12-hour days, 12-hour nights, and then it gets just a little longer on one and a little shorter on the other. That's where you really don't see much of a change. All right. Now, this is kind of the odd part, so let me explain. Each one of these lines represents 10 degrees of latitude, okay? So up from the equator, that'd be 10 degrees north, 20 degrees, 30 degrees, 40 degrees, 50 degrees. It's gonna end at 60 degrees. That top line does not represent 90, that top line represents 60 degrees north latitude. The reason they don't keep going with the lines, if you think about when you look at round objects, remember I'm putting a 3D image on it in 2D form. When you start getting to these top ones, don't they get really smushed together from your perspective? Don't they look like they're really smushed together? Okay, so that's why they stop at 60, right? On this picture, they stop at 60, right? 90 degrees latitude, is that actually a line of latitude or is that a point? That's actually a point, right? Okay, so 90 degrees is actually a point right here. And you'll notice on that winter solstice picture, right? I'm gonna draw this dotted line. You'll notice that this is all dark, right? And this side's all light. This point right here where it gets dark, that is actually 66.5 degrees north latitude, and then there's going to be one down here on the south. What that represents is what's called the Arctic Circle. You know how yesterday I talked to you about the Tropic of Capricorn, the Tropic of Cancer? Well, there's also the Arctic Circle and Antarctic Circle. If you live between the two tropics, that means, that guarantees the sun will be directly overhead at least one time a year. Is the sun ever going to be directly overhead for us up here? Because we're always going to be north of the sun. And if you think about things, when you look, here it goes, when you look up at the sun, yes, I get the sun's in the sky. Yes, I get that it rises in the east and sets in the west. But is it straight overhead? No, it doesn't like rise in the east, pass straight overhead and set in the west here. It's always in what sky, the north or the south. You always have to look what direction to find the sun. You always have to look towards the south, don't you? But if you lived in the southern hemisphere, you would have to look towards the... That would be weird to us, right? Because we're used to looking towards the south. So, all right. If you live at this point or further north, you have at least one day of total darkness every year, and you have at least one day of total light. That's what that Arctic Circle means. Okay. Now, the further north, the more days of darkness and more days of light in the summer. All right. I'm going to answer just a couple questions together. So for the table, here's what you're going to do. 90 degrees north on the summer solstice, you get all daylight. On the winter solstice, you get no daylight. 60 degrees north, so what you're going to do is you're going to go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. So what you'll do is you'll go to that line of latitude, and you'll just read the hours. And then for 30, you go to that line of latitude, and you just read the hours and write it down. That is all you do for this table. Okay? And again, I'm going to leave a key. But if you get flip-flop, that's okay. I want you to go to question 2. It says, it should say find your latitude, but it says find you latitude. Find your latitude. Dodge City, Kansas, our actual latitude is about 37.75 degrees north. That will be the number we use for our calculations on the other pages. But since these lines of latitude just go up by tens, we're going to round 37.75 to 40. Is everybody okay with that? 40 degrees latitude would be like the Nebraska border. It'd be that. Like if you're from Kansas City, you'd be pushing that latitude. Not quite, but pushing. So I want you to go up and find 40 degrees latitude. I want you to write down, this would be the answer to question number 2. I want you to write down how many hours of daylight in the winter, how many hours of daylight in the summer you get at 40 degrees latitude. I want you to write that down. All right. How many of us are from around here? And most of us from probably, you guys from England, I'm going to come back. All right. In the wintertime, how many hours of daylight is it saying we get on the winter solstice? Okay. About 9 hours. Now this is bulkers. We're not dead on 40 and okay. I want you to think about this. Or think about last semester if you were here right before you left. Okay, the day before you left. Does the sun come up like not till like 8-ish? Right? So like I was starting my 7:30 lab in the dark at the end of last semester. Does that sound about right? What time does the sun go down that time of year? Like 5-ish, right? Like seriously, I know there are times where I get busy here and I don't see my house in the daylight for a week. Because I leave when it's dark and I came home when it was dark. Okay? That's not uncommon in the wintertime. Well, 8 to 5, is that about 9 hours? So is that pretty accurate? Is that pretty accurate? Now, think summertime. Yay, summertime. Think summertime. How many hours does it say we get in the summer? 14? Well, let's think about summertime. Does the sun come up 6-ish, maybe a little before? And does it not go down till like 9-ish, 9:30-ish? Right? So that gets you about right. Now, here's the weird thing. Okay, you northern people, not Kansas City northern, way northern people, 50 degrees latitude people. That's okay. I want you to look at the summer solstice picture, okay, and then look at how the daylight hours work, summer solstice. When you think north, Minnesota, northern England, things like that, when you think north, what do you think of? Cold. And do we associate temperature with Mr. Sun being out? Right? Do we associate Mr. Sun and warm? Like, is that something we associate with? So when we think north, we think cold. And even here in the United States, does Minnesota get as hot in the summer as Dodge City, Kansas? As Phoenix, Arizona? want you to look at the hours of daylight in the summer. Look at the hours of daylight for 40 degrees latitude, the 14:52, 14 hours, 52 minutes. And then I want you to go up to 50, 60 degrees latitude. What do you notice about the daylight hours? Are they more or less? Does that seem weird? Do you guys have pretty long days in the summertime? You do, you get like pretty daylight. You get a lot of your daylight hours. Okay. We associate, like, because our heads, it's weird. Now, coming in here, did everybody know that the North Pole gets 24 hours of daylight at this time of year? This is something we learned, right? But doesn't it seem weird that in the summer, the further north you go, the more daylight they have, but they're not as warm? Does that seem weird? Okay. Funny story. Because nobody else likes to listen to them. You're forced to listen to them. So we went to Aruba one summer, and we like right before school started. And again, summertime here, Mr. Sun doesn't go down until 9:30 or so, right? We get to Aruba, which is closer to the equator, so look on your summer solstice and go down from us. You notice that those daylight hours get less and less, right? And again, you associate south of us with hotter, but they're getting less daylight. So we go to Aruba, right? The first night we're sitting on the beach, we're eating dinner, it's like 6:30 at night. And the sun's going down. And I freaked out. I'm like, oh, where are you going? You stay out until 9:30. I don't like my sun to go away. You stay out till 9:30. But in Aruba, where you're closer to the equator, their days are shorter. And so the sun went down earlier. Although I knew that, academically, I knew that piece of information, to experience it was weird. That makes sense? We're so used to our lives. Now, is the opposite true in the winter? The further north you go, the shorter the daylight hours are. Further south you go, the longer daylight hours are. So let me ask you this. This shows up later in this lab. Is it just the amount of daylight hours that determines how warm you get or determines your seasons? No, there's a little more to it than that, and that's what the rest of the paper